Hi guys, I hope you can hear me okay. Let me go up on that volume, drop that volume to about there. Hopefully you can hear me okay right there. And sorry we didn't have one last Thursday night, but my wife's birthday was along in there, and it just things got in the way, just the way it is. But how about this cool snap? Isn't that awesome? It's got actual in the 30s the last 3 mornings, or right at I think 34, 35. And this morning, hello Tiny Titan, and hello Ryan. Hiram, how you doing? BC, everything's going good thus far. I mean, cool weather, what's not to like? We're not sweating continuously out there. So I mean, come on, it's enjoyable. Had a good time doing some videos and stuff. Went camping this past weekend overnight. Just trying to enjoy the time. Southern Trapping Solutions, hello there. Hello, Cat USA. Cat USA? Catfusa? We'll say Cat USA. My southern tongue is going to butcher some pronunciations. Just accept it. It's just the way it is. Hello there, Jay. Jay Hay. K Hay 25. We'll just say Jay. Hello, Jay. How you doing? Well, we've had a cold snap, and we're going to be followed up by a warm front. What's happening is the polar vortex on top of the world has become decentralized, and it's drifting back and forth across the sides. So it drifts over this way, then it wallows over that way. See, look, the jet stream kept taking a deep dip. So it was 90 something degrees, and then it was 34 degrees with highs in the 50s and 60s, and then it's going to be back up in the 80s and 90s. So it's going to be a real dance. Hello, Dan in Tucson. How you doing? Mopar Mark, hello. So we're expecting, is it going to be a bad winter? I think it's going to be kind of in the middle. They're actually usually when this kind of weather pattern happens, the West Coast gets warm because it sucks more moisture, more warm air up, and the center of the country gets colder. Arctic blast coming in, and then down here at the south, we swing back and forth a little both ways. Hello, Dutch. How you doing tonight? Tiny Titan, Oregon's finally getting rain. I know that's odd. Y'all have the same type of rain pattern like we do. Of every few days there's rain, but things have shifted around a little bit. And I think this polar vortex flipping around up on top is really upsetting a lot of weather patterns right now. From Corsica, hello. The Beast of Bray Road. Chuck, hello. BC. Vancouver Island, Canada. So did I. I had to put my coat on. I had to dig out my M65 field jacket, which is, I love wearing that thing anyway. And so I had to dig it out because we're going to be in the 30s down here. Going from 80s and 90s to 30s, it was a 40, 50 degree temperature drop for us. So it was a real change. Hello, Southwestern Missouri, Ronald. Okay, just JK. Gotcha. All right, JK, we're good. View 34, hello. South Trapping, frost in South Georgia this morning. This morning when I came out, we didn't have frost, but that feeling in the air, and when you take that first breath there, that little bitty spiky pinky you feel in your chest. Yeah, it was close. It was this close. We almost got it. I'm looking forward to good frosty days. Arkansas, hello there, Dave. Chaka, hello from California. Good evening to CJ, the Saxon. Hello from Maine. Maine, how are y'all with all that weather that went up the coast and hit up y'all? I remember the hurricane was going up that way not long ago, right before Ian. There was one that went up that way and was causing some damage. Y'all got any problems from that? Good evening, Terry. I have not. I have heard that someone has bought GoX. I have not heard, the name, the official announcement, but they have bought GoX, I understand. And GoX does a lot of military contracts because black powder is still used in a lot of military ordnance for pellets and things like that. And so our little, us shooting in percussion is a mere tip of the iceberg for that company and their production. And so, really, to be honest, I figured that GoX back in the mid 2000s should have just completely built a new factory and modernized, and they didn't. And so I'm thinking this could be a good thing where the old one kind of burned, and they'll modernize and increase production. It should clean it up a little bit because GoX had got to where it was a lot dirtier than it had been back in the 70s and 80s, and hopefully they'll fix that. Hello, Miss Pam and Stephen. How you doing? Jason Gross, hello. Let's see. Cold rain in the UK, but it's been nice last 2 weeks. Hopefully that's all y'all get was just a little cold rain. Hello to OD in Tennessee. All right. Hello, Mr. Western Foothills. The Saxon 8, or is that a B? BC, what 10 items would I take if I was to go on the show alone? I would definitely take about a 1/2 inch thick by about 6 inch long fire steel. And if they wouldn't count it as a second thing, I'd add duct tape to the end of it for a big handle and also as a fire tender. I would take a U.S. Army canteen and cup because with that I can process water and cook for myself pretty easily. Let's say it'd be 3 items. So 3. Then there's going to be either a wool blanket or a down sleeping bag, depending on where this is supposed to be situated at. Something about like a 10 by 10 canvas tarp. With that, I'm good. Wouldn't need a compass. Wouldn't need that. Wouldn't need that. I could improvise that. We got 5 items so far. Salt. Salt would be a biggie. That salt, one of them crazy salt mixes, something that's got little flavors to it, all mixed together. Yeah, as a spice to spice up wild game and stuff. Fishing hook and steel leader, treble hook, I should say, and steel leader. And we'll call that. So I got 3 to go. The other 3, I'd probably go for comfort, to be honest with you. Because that's got my shelter taken care of. From that, I could easily build a frame and throw that tarp over it and anchor it and make a substantial shelter to build it into something bigger. With the ferro rod, I got thousands of fires. I'll get a fire going and just keep it rolling. Fishing, if I'm near water and stuff, I'll set up weirs and fish baskets and stuff like that I'll construct on site. Probably a big roll of bank line. One of the large rolls of bank line, so I'd have plenty of cordage because that would slow me down having to make cordage. So that'd be like my 9th item would be that. Of course, my knife, my favorite WC knife, so we'll call that 10 WC knife. So that would have just about all my creature comforts covered and something I could start and build upon from that. Then it's just what resources do you have and how much time do you have to build it or work with it or come up with it. So Terry says, I've heard that GoX will be back on the shelves this January. It'd be nice. Tranders 365, hello. Hello to Daytona. Good evening, William. Mike Simmons, hello, sir. Mopar Mark, do you like wool socks or other? I prefer wool or blend. Cotton socks do not hold up. in the long run. Now, they got certain advantages, but wool socks, as far as wearing and actually using, the wool socks are a better choice for me, especially for hiking, camping, things like that. Once they get wet, they don't lose their shape. They don't become a wad at the bottom of your boot. They kind of stay up better. They're more rigid. The cushioning does good. Even wet, they're warmer than cotton, and you can't help but perspire out of your feet inside of a boot. So wool is going to be warmer in the long run than the cotton's going to be. And plus the fact I've got some pair of wool socks, military issue wool socks, I've had 10 years and wore them extensively, and they held up. I really want to get another pair of, if any of you out there know what I'm talking about, they were called Norwegian fisherman socks. And there was a one size fits all. And when you bought them, they were like $30 a pair. It was like the top of the sock was this wide, and it was about 4 feet long. And what you do is you put it in hot water, and it shrinks up and gets thicker. And so you run it through a hot wash, and you try it on. If it's still too loose, you dunk it back in hot water, throw it back in a hot dryer, and you shrink it up and shrink it up and shrink it up till it fits you. Well, by the time you got that thing shrunk down to where it would fit me, they were, as thick as a Whitney blanket all the way around, and went from my top of my thighs all the way to my ankles, and it was like leggings. But you could be standing in a mud puddle, in 20-degree weather, and your feet would be cold while you was in the water. When you went to walking, we didn't have waterproof boots. When you went to walking and you kind of pumped the water out where it was just back to damp, it'd be warm in 5 minutes. Best socks I ever had, and I had several pair of them. And then over the years, I've had ladies talk me out of them because they loved them so much. So one of these days I'll get some more of them. OD Green, what do you think about gear prescription boxes? I have not done that. And I understand on one side how people in the cities or stuff that have no idea, that just love to try out new gear and stuff like that. It would be a way to get gear in, to try it, and then what you didn't like, you could eBay it off or whatever. I could see that. But for somebody that's got some experience and has got some gear already, it's just more junk. I mean, yeah, this is a really good whatever, but I've already got a really good whatever, and it just becomes repetitive. So for somebody like me, it would not be a good thing because I've got all my gear plus. But for somebody first starting out that has no clue, it might be a good idea. And I knew a guy that he was running on one of those battle boxes or whatever things, and then what he didn't like, he just put on eBay. And he was recovering like 3/4 or better the price of the box, selling the stuff on eBay that he didn't want. So it could be a good thing for people. Hello, Eric in Salinas, Kansas. BC, you're welcome. Errol, good evening. Jacob, any ideas on a nuclear survival shelter? The Civil Defense did an in-depth study of that back in the 50s and 60s up through the 70s. And I'm sure somewhere out there you can find construction plans, diagrams, stuff like that. Because in my day, when we were young, there was a lot of people that built bomb shelters in their basement and stuff like that just for that. So I'm sure if you look around, you can find it. I have not personally built one. Down here, we call them tornado shelters. And same basic idea. It's just they've got provisions or not. So, it's one of those things. If you think you might need something, especially if you're near a base or something that should war happen, you might need such protection. Might be an idea to go look it up. Hello, Ryan Walker. Crocs all the time. Crocs are okay. They just don't work with my feet. Jay, have I tried merino wool socks? I have. A little expensive, but very smooth and very nice. And I get a lot of times the military surplus Arctic socks because that surplus place I go to, a lot of times I have them for $3 a pair used, and you can't tell they've ever been worn. In fact, I've gone in there and found bundles of them still sealed up that have never been taken out of the package, and they wanted $3 a pair. And it was the wool socks for the Arctic set, and it's kind of like a merino wool. And so I have wore a couple of pairs of those Merinos. They're very nice. Hello, Caesar in Connecticut. Jacob. Yes, from would a cavern protect us from nuclear exchange? A, is it isolated? That means airflow, etc. B, water coming in. Is it coming out of the ground? Is it flowing in from another end? Therefore, could bring in contamination. The initial radiation from an explosion is A, where it blows out. B, where it rains back down. That by far spreads it the farthest. C, it's then absorbed into the ground, into water, transported by water, etc. About 10 days after the blast, the bulk of the water stuff is either settled or moved on. The stuff on the surface, etc. So caverns can be an initial yes, but the question remains is how stable is the cavern? Airflow coming in could bring in radiation. Water flowing in could bring in radiation. That's one of the things. Again, that CDC might be a way to look at it, and they had a lot of really in-depth ideas of natural shelters and etc. Red sorghum. Have you ever made hardtack? Yes. During my living history days, I did. And Tasting History on YouTube is a gentleman that does a very good episode on hardtack, ship's biscuit, variations of a theme there, and how to do it. And even how to cook with it, hellfire stew and things like that, where it's just a very hard cracker, basically, that will last for years and can be put up for emergency storage. Yes, it is edible. Yes, it lasts for years. Didn't say it tastes real good, but when there's nothing else and the other choice is to eat sawdust, yeah, hardtack ain't too bad then. But till then, it's not my favorite. You know, kind of tough on the teeth. Hello, Diane. How's the weather in LA tonight? Tonight, it is beautiful. It's clear. It's cool. It's supposed to be, it's 56 right now, and it's supposed to be down to 37, I think, tonight, and then it's supposed to start warming up. So I've had a couple of really great days to get out in the mornings and see the sun and see the leaves are falling. It's just fantastic. Where have all the shelter halves gone? Some of the surplus places still get them, but the thing is, excuse me, a lot of times, several years ago, a lot of them surplus places took a lot of those shelter halves and sold off the canvas, and it was being recycled into something else. Because I knew a surplus place that had a bunch of old army tents and stuff that were all damaged, and they were like a half a truckload they were selling off. So maybe a lot of those shelter halves went there. But just check around that Kaufman's Military that I go to. Sometimes they'll have a shelter half, so you may want to contact them. You just never know what's going to be coming in. Redbeard, hello. Thumbs up to you too. Dirk, have you ever tried the Cold Steel Bushman? Yes, I have. It's actually a very good knife for a field knife. That hollow handle, what we did was we whittled a plug for either end. So in the deep end of it, we tapped it in where it was not horribly snug, added a little candle wax. And then on the top end, we made a plug we could put in and take out, and put a lanyard through the lanyard hole through the plug, so we could tie the plug so it didn't come out, and put a survival kit inside that hollow handle. And it actually is a really good survival knife, especially on a budget. It works well, and yes, you can make a spear out of it, but it does really well. Better than you think when you get out there and start working with it. BC, yeah, Choir Boy. I'm going to be on Choir Boy's channel next week. He wants to do another interview with me, so I'll be on there. I think it's next Wednesday night. I'm going to be on Choir Boy Cutlery Outdoors channel. Chad, you're very welcome. Glad to help. Terry, if there's a nuclear war, I want the first one to land on my head. There's a lot of people feel that way too, just If it's going to be that way, let it be over. Big as Life Media. Well, hello to Enterprise. How you doing? Are you in Enterprise, Alabama, or which Enterprise, Alabama? There's two Enterprise, Alabamas. The one that's near me, and then the one's way up near Birmingham that's got 2 dogs and a chicken. They call it Enterprise as well. Chuck, yes, I am going to be doing cooking videos very shortly. And in fact, me and Bear had breakfast this morning and was talking about that. He made pumpkin. He got one of the small pumpkins and roasted it for dinner the other night and spiced it up and served it to his daughter. And his daughter tasted it and said, "What is this?" And he says, "Pumpkin." She said, "It tastes like chicken." But with the right spices and tricks, it tastes like meat more than it tastes like a vegetable. And so we're going to be doing cooking things. Yeah, it is coming, I promise. Jacob, what about a mine? Yes, you can get into mines. Again, make sure the opening and closing mines depend on air drafts. So that would be something you got to concern. But yeah, you could. Miss Pam, watching that's it. Tasting his history with Max Miller. If you're looking to learn how to do hardtack and a lot of things, he's a good teacher for that. Terry, thank you very much. Ooh, we got goldenrod is in bloom down here, guys, and my nose is tickling. I'm sorry, but it's like you got a feather up your nose just doing like that. And woo! Terry from the thumb of Michigan. We had snow this week. Farmers are trying to do beans, sugar beets, and corn, but with the rain and snow, it's going to be slow going. Yeah, it's hitting a little early this year, and a lot of your slower crops are kind of that way. We have drought down here, basically, and farmers down here do peanuts. And, of course, peanuts grow in the ground, and so they have to dig them. And so they come through, and this device digs and flips it upside down, and that puts the peanut still attached to the plant with the peanuts up on top. And they let it dry for 24 to 48 hours, depending on the soil, and they come by and run over it, and that picks it up. Well, if the ground is too dry, like it is now, you go to dig, and the plant rips out and leaves the peanuts in the dirt. And so you lose a lot of your crop. So which means you're planted for next year, but at the same time, it means you don't get a good crop this year. And so a lot of farmers are kind of on the fence about it right now. Right now is our big, now and through November is the big digging time to get them out. And it's just so dry down here. A clone, hello from Ireland. Good to see you here as well. Debray, thank you very much. Oh, hello, Ryan. How you doing? Awesome. Wood pallets as fuel works very well. Now, what I recommend you do is go buy Harbor Freight or whatever and get a Sawzall. And a Sawzall is a motor with a handle back here and like a big jigsaw blade. They're thicker than that. You can stand a pallet up and just cut through the boards, or get one of the metal cutting ones and go sideways and cut through the nails and cut it apart instead of trying to beat it apart with an axe or something, and cut it into stove size. And most of that is hard oak or something like that, hard ash pallets, and it's kiln dried a lot of times. It has to be very durable. And if you can get a source of it, not terrible far from me, is a pallet factory where they make pallets. And for years, you could go up to there and out the back door. It's the butt cuts. It's the square pieces about that big, that's that long and whatever. And it's where they cut off big timbers, and it ain't big enough to make anything. And they throw it out the back door in a pile, and they'd tell you it was $10 per pickup truckload. All you could load in a pickup. And back when we were using a wood stove to heat the house, I'd go over and make about 8 trips and have a full winter's worth of wood for less than $100 of seasoned oak. So pallets can be a real good source. Solo Edge, hello, New Zealand. Yes, well, I mentioned today in my video about using body oil as a lubricant. That's something you see in pipe smokers, of them taking and rubbing on the side of their nose, and up here on the temples, there's areas in here that seem to generate more oil. Some people, it's even the lobe of their ear. They'll generate more oil. And he took his pocket knife and put it on the edge of a board and sawed it both ways to get any kind of surface off, and then went to just doing that and rubbing and coated it in oil. And it was a field expedient. You know, it wouldn't be the thing I'd want to do all the time, but it was something in the field you could do, especially if you had some little precise little blade, you know, that you wanted to make sure did not rust, because it'd be very difficult, like an X-Acto blade or a skinning blade or whatever. If you had nothing else, it'd be at least something you could do. Tim Harper using wood pallets and stoves. It does. It works very well. And I like the fact that since pallets kind of a standard size, when you learn how to cut it up, you end up with the big thick blocks that are the base runners, and then the thin top, and you can cut them all to a certain size. And what we do in our wood stove is I would put 2 big base runners in, and I'd put the little stuff on top. And then once I got a good bed of coals going, then I would put them big bases in there and let them go. Especially if we're in block size, I'd cut them down to pieces about that big and just sit them in there. And you'd watch the heat band on the stove working from back to front. And when it got about, that far from the front, I'd open the door, shove everything in the back, and add new. Close the door, and you'd watch the heat band coming across the stove, see? And so you get about 4 hours of burn time in that wood stove before I had to restock. And at night, I would just put long pieces in. Get a good bed of coals, stack it all the way up, have it good and hot, house is good and hot, turn my dampener down real low, and a lot of times it would burn all night. It'd burn it 6-7 hours. And so by the time I got up in the morning to go to work, you still had hot coals in there. You could fire it back up. And that's what I'd do. I'd normally get up about 5:30 and go in there and restock the stove to let the house warm up, so that when the wife had to get up at 6, I was up 5:30. When she had to get up at 6:30, the house would warm back up. So I just go in there and restock the stove, shut the door, fan it, make sure it was going. I'd come back to bed, and that way she'd get up, take her shower, and etc. So you learn the dance of how to work a stove. I'm amazed remembering a lot of the old people that I saw years ago that had wood stoves, and how they would keep a stove going like that. Not I'm talking about like the heater stove, but like the big cooking stoves. So they would be a little coals or stuff left in it in the morning from last night's meal, because they knew how to bank the fire, and they'd come in and fan it up, fire it up, put straw on it, whatever, get it going, and have coffee going in just a couple minutes. And that stove would run all day, either at a slow simmer, a boil, or whatever, to cook or bake or whatever. And there was a pattern. You fired the stove up to cook breakfast, and then immediately after breakfast, now it's hot. Now you did your breads and stuff, and that helped warm up the house. See, and so you baked your breads, and they came out and they went in the warming racks, and that's for dinner and lunch. And then you started your long cooked meal. That roast is going to have to be on there 4 hours or something. You started cooking along, and then you had time. You could leave the kitchen and go do stuff, and just check back in every hour or so to keep it all going. And then at the end of the day, after everything was done, and that's when they would bake the cakes and stuff, as the oven, they'd start out a little too hot and let the oven be cooling, actually. So it'd take a little longer to bake, but it didn't burn it and it didn't dry it out. And then when you got done, you had your, pound cake or whatever. And then that was something you could eat cold the next day. So there was a pattern, how, when, and where, and what time period they cooked. It wasn't like our thoughts today, just running there and I'll cook it. They were setting up sometimes a day in advance in order to have the fire ready to go when they wanted it. Dirk, have I ever eaten earthworms for survival as a survival food? I've eaten them. I have not eaten them as a survival food, but I have eaten them. In fact, I ate an omelet with them, eggs with them one time. Attila, thank you very much. And hello to Tennessee. Special Forces. used to, whenever you were going to go to sign up for special forces and you had to take the written test, they did it at breakfast, and they would cook you an omelet with earthworms and eggs. And I wasn't in that, but I had a good friend of mine that was special forces. And so one day we were doing a thing with Boy Scouts, and he brought earthworms and eggs, and we had an omelet of earthworms and eggs. It's just protein. You'll find out who's squeamish real quick. It's just, when you're poor and you came up poor, trust me, that which does not get me is on the menu. Find a way. Does paint on pallets mean different things? Usually the weight limits. Certain red pallets are designed for a higher weight load than the blue pallets. It doesn't matter for what you're going to be doing, though. Edgar, hello. Brad, hello from Virginia. You're very welcome. Caesar, again, hello. Hello, Jeff in Texas. 68 degrees. Awesome. James, hello to South Carolina. And Joseph, hello to Columbus, Ohio. Is it been raining in Ohio or what? I know they got snow all the way down in Tennessee the other night. Did y'all get any? Edgar, dehydrated pumpkin. Yes, lasts a long time. And in fact, Bear's going to make pumpkin pickles. It's where you take the rind and make it into a pickle. Like I've eaten watermelon rind pickles. And we were talking about it at breakfast this morning. He wants to try to do pumpkin pickles where you take the rind after you scoop out all the meat out and you take and make a pickle like out of it. Well, hello, Wayne in Australia. Glad you could tune in and keep learning. We never quit learning. Mike Simmons, yes, I've seen that. Rubbing something. I've seen where you had a little tight fitting part. Sometimes I've seen them do like that and then rub on it to get a little bit of oil to do it. I've seen them lift the hood of the truck too and pull the dipstick out and use that to oil something, put the dipstick back in. Go grab the oiler. What oiler? Dipstick. Okay, got it. Jay, we had a coal range when it came to the UK. Principle's the same, yes. When I was young, you had a lot of really old houses, and if you went in and the fireplace was this deep, that was a coal fireplace. If it was 3 foot deep, that was a wood fireplace. And so a lot of times in houses in cities and things, you had this really shallow fireplace, and it was just a brazier with coal in it. And it wasn't really meant for wood. The flue in the chimney was even smaller. And people don't realize there were different kinds. And I can remember when dump trucks would come up and down the roads when I was a small boy carrying coal. And they would shovel 100-pound sack in a big croaker sack for like $4 or something like that. And it was for those type of little bitty coal fireplaces because Alabama has a lot of coal. One of the largest coal producers. So it was not a long run for them to get down here and just sell it door to door. A lot of times they would go around to the big coal producing areas where they were loading and unloading the railway cars, and it'd spill over onto the dirt beside the railroad track. And after the trains moved off, these people would come in and gathered up and fill up or just go buy a truckload of it, and then come around and sell it like you'd sell produce or whatever. Oh, Edgar, better off catching crickets. Yeah, but them legs bother me. If you ever forget they get stuck in your throat, one of them legs, just insects are kind of tough. Haven't tried termites. I've tried ants. All ants taste like licorice. Hello, Chris in Missouri. Ford tractor. Hello, Kansas. Joseph. No snow, just cooler temps. Yep. Wayne, I saw that the pattern down there that Australia is really having a lot of floods, a lot of rain. That's something y'all don't normally get. Well, in the lower areas. I know in the upper areas, y'all are kind of forested and green pretty heavily, but down in the other areas, y'all ain't really set up for that kind of flooding. Caesar, any good recipes for squirrel and rabbit? Yes. Boil it. take the squirrel and take it and boil it until it turns kind of soft, not where it's falling off the bone. And this is going to vary by the squirrel, okay, how tough and how old, but just boil it. After you boil it for like 10-15 minutes, take it out and kind of give the flesh a little. If it's soft, it feels like baked chicken would be, then you can take it and batter and fry it, and very tender and easy to do that. Another thing is simply keep boiling until it's ready to come off the bone. Take a fork, get all the meat off of it, and then add in yellow rice and other spices and stuff. So squirrel and rice is very good. Rabbit, I like baked rabbit, and I would rather take the rabbit and bake it until it's soft, and then add barbecue sauce. I like a real sweet barbecue sauce on it. And the meat is fairly tender at that point. And so you can't tear it up like you can pork, but it becomes kind of like, buffalo wings, that kind of texture. And it's a good way to do it. Hello to St. Louis from Philip. Tony, that is awesome. I have heard of that, of getting a combustion engine to run on wood gas. You can do it. Go for it. I mean, why not? I mean, denatured alcohol is simply wood alcohol. And the reason that they denature it so you won't drink it, because it could kill you, unlike grain alcohol. I mean, it's what we run our little bitty Trangia stoves off of, is denatured alcohol. There's no reason why you can't get a combustion engine to run off alcohol. It takes twice as much, but it gives you the same horsepower. And I think you just got, back in us old carbureted days, you just had to change the jets. So if it took a 2, you put a 4 in it, and it would run just like it was running on gas. Ford, do I make hash from scratch out in the woods? Not usually. Time consuming. Now, if we're stuck and it's been raining for a couple of days and we're kind of stuck, yeah, that's when you bring out the potatoes and you dice them up to tiny little things, and you bring the meat out and dice it up really, really, really fine, and do like that. That's when you start doing some of your fancy cooking, because you kind of stuck. And but usually I don't make it. I just carry canned hash and things like that. Canned hash is really good on cold morning, especially when you put eggs with it. Really good. Hey, Blackie, have you ever been scared camping by yourself? It's almost Halloween, you know. Of course. Anybody that spent any time out there it's just human nature, especially when you're by yourself, that you can talk yourself into things. One of my favorite lines in the movie The Mountain Man is whenever Charlton Heston says, you know, yes, there is something out there. There's always something out there. There's coons, there's possums, there's dogs, there's horses, there's everything out there. Something's out there moving. But, you know, you're out there alone in the dark. It's just human nature to get spooked sometimes. But the difference is understanding that you are the biggest predator out here, and that noise doesn't mean bad. And just because you can't see it don't mean that it's anything important. I've been out there and had convinced that I had something big about to get me, and not have a flashlight or nothing to check it, you know, just put a tree between me and sit there and wait. But over time, you know, and people be honest, they'll tell you, yeah, I've been out there, I've been scared sometimes, but don't let it stop you. Keep going. And you'll become more and more comfortable, more and more at home to it. But it is something you just got to accept, that there's going to be times you're going to have stuff that kind of spooks you a little bit. It's just the way it is. Jasper, have a good night. No, I have not. Using cheap aftershave as a bug repellent. I have used Skin So Soft from Avon, though. Works good. In fact, the United States Marine Corps allowed them to use it because of the sand fleas at Paris Island. And so they let them use that. So I have used that. Anything that will repel them, you know. Gulf Coast Pint. My pet squirrel is watching this. Hello, pet squirrel. I had one named Peanut. I didn't ask for it. It was actually my nephew had it, and he couldn't keep it. So he, all tearfully gave me this pet squirrel. And he stayed with me for about 8 months. And then my dad lived kind of off secluded in a place where nobody was hunting. And there were the squirrels down there. And he was mature enough at that time. So I took him down there and turned him loose in the big oak tree. And he'd come down every afternoon. My daddy'd come out to sit on the back deck. And he'd come out. My daddy would feed him cashews. And he lived to be a ripe old age as a squirrel. So hello to Pennsylvania, to nature. Yeah, the Chupa Libre, Chupacabra, Bigfoot. All right. Let's see here. Click on that. There. Thoughts on loading a 260 grain Dragoon bullets in a Remington. Can it be done? I doubt it, to be honest. The problem would be going with a 260. The chambers of the Remington are not going to do it. And when you put a 260 in there, all you've done is just sheared off a big hunk of lead and made it a 4.54. 4.56 maybe at the most. So you're going to lose a lot of lead just by shoehorning it in there. You won't end up with it. You need a chamber big enough to handle it. In fact, I took the Kato Ojama 260s, and they fit on the 45 Colt brass real easy, and shot them in my 45 Colt. That really is like a Keith design from a 45 Colt that he's modified. He had a mold creation to keep the same idea, and they're very good hunting bullets. But really, that 260 it just makes it longer, and it gets to the point you just ain't got enough room. You got to reduce the powder charge so far back, you reach a point of diminishing returns where I can put a huge bullet in there, but now I ain't got enough powder capacity to drive that huge bullet to a higher speed that a smaller bullet wouldn't outperform it due to that. Yeah, and like anything else, there's a pendulum balance you got to find. Hello, Ryan. Thank you very much. How chupacabra tastes like chicken when you cook it? I bet. Chupacabra stew. Oh, yeah. Armadillos sound like bulldozers when they come at you. They can really make a lot of noise. And you would think with their little hooves like they got that they would be quieter than they are, but they kind of just bulldoze through everything. They're rooting with their nose, hunting insects. And so you think like something big is dragging its feet up at you. And then if you spook one, they'll launch straight up in the air like 6 feet high. So I had a close friend of mine got bopped where he thought he had something else, and he leaned over the log right quick, thinking he was going to spook something, and that thing launched straight up and hit him in the nose. It's just, it's amazing how fast they can run when they want to and how high they can jump when they want to. How do you keep, Caesar, how do you keep bears out of your camp when you're stealth camping? I've had a coyote growl at my tent door in the middle of the night and scare me off. Yeah. Bears down here in my neck of the woods are very scared of humans at this time. They are not as confident and as desensitized as you had in a lot of the western parts and western parts of the world, even up in Maine. Now, down in North Florida, they did have a hunt a couple of years ago because they said they would allow them to harvest 300 black bears. Well, they got all 300, a limit of 300. When 300, they were going to stop hunt. And they got all 300 in one weekend. Well, that's all your nuisance bears that are already know about humans, ain't afraid of humans, and they're coming in, the kitchen trying to get something out of your refrigerator at night. But for the most part down here, they will leave you alone. And bear is much more sensitive to human smell and everything. So if you're stealthed in there, if he approaches for anything, it's just A to see if you're alive. If you make a human noise or whatever and you move around, he's probably gone down here. He'll take off like a bulldozer and gone. But as far as him making the noise or something, is usually sufficient down here. We don't even have to put our food up in baskets down here because he's not going to bother you unless you left it all alone. You've been gone for hours and hours. Sir Gregory, hello. Nicholas T, hello to Middlefield, Ohio. Thank you very much. Thick 45 curb bullets. Yeah, I like if you're looking for historic one to try out, okay, the curb bullet would be a really good choice. I like it better than I do the Colt. The Johnson & Dow is a very historic bullet. However, it's just a little bit too pointy, really. And it's built more for penetration than performance, really, as far as a hunting bullet. So if you're looking to hunt like hog or something with a percussion revolver, I think the curb bullet would be a better choice. Dirk, have you ever used cut shells in a 12 gauge? Yep, I was a natural Alabamian. I had made wax slugs, cut shells, all of the above in my exploration of the world. And they can be extremely effective on impact. Gary, doing very well, thank you. Worm, actually down here, if you're going to do, just hang in a tree. Up in the places like Pacific Northwest and all that, where they big parks, yeah, you need a bear can because those bears have learned how to climb the tree and get it out of the tree, get out on those thin limbs, and get your food down. Whereas most of the domestic bears down here, they care less. But that's what them great big old Yeti coolers and stuff is. Really a bear box. When you look at it, a lot of them got the grizzly symbol on the side of it where they got authorization to put. They put one into a cage with a grizzly and put his favorite treat, I think it's Tootsie Rolls, into it in front of him, and they put it in there. And after an hour, if he ain't got the can open, then you could put that symbol on your cooler and claim that you're bear proof. Choir boys, hello, brother. How you doing? Edgar, what is it? CZ makes a 7.6239 bolt action. Very nice gun. I don't know about the ones you're talking about, the surplus ones, but it shoots 7.6239. It was bolt action and hand loaded. That gun will do anything a 308 will do out to 400 yards. At the same time, you can load it back down. There was a guy, and I believe it was Hand Loader Magazine, 8 or 9, maybe 10 years ago now, that did an article on that where he took a bolt action 7.6239 CZ, and he wanted to know what the cartridge was capable of. And so he got brass 7.6239. Since it's not going in an automatic, he doesn't have to stick to the pointy bullet. And he loaded it all the way down like a 30 carbine bullet and loaded it down to about 1,000 feet per second for shooting rabbits and squirrels. And on the other end, he put the bullet that was really designed for the 300 Savage in it and loaded it up to full 308 ballistics and was doing anything a 308 would do at 300 or 400 yards. And so he had a 8-pound carbine bolt action that he can hunt anything on the North American continent with by hand loading. So it can be a good idea if you take the time to learn the cartridge and how to work with it. Hello, Joe in Little Rock. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a good old story of mine. Oh, make them cry. Oh boy, Tony, I took my Great Dane treeing recently. I bet he was enthusiastic. Those are giant puppies. We had one named JoJo years ago. He was like 180 pounds and thought he was a teacup chihuahua. He wanted to get in your lap all the time. How did we give him a bath? We took him to the car wash. You think I'm kidding? He would stand there and let you take the brush and then take the pressure hose, and he'd go, ooh, yeah, yeah, ooh, yeah. He loved it. You know, that's how we gave him a bath. And his favorite snack was moon pie, a whole moon pie at one time. You just unravel it and throw it like a frisbee and hit in one hit, and it was gone. Oh, JoJo. He was, enthusiasm was his name. Yeah, Worm Wrangler, the bears in California have been desensitized to people. Same thing with y'all's mountain lions. They will come out in plain daylight in front of you because they've been desensitized. Attila, yes. I know what you're talking about. It can be noisy as all get out, and suddenly the bears, the whatever, the hogs, whatever, they're rooting, they're making all kinds of racket, and then suddenly it's like you flip a switch and everything goes silent, and you're wondering, what did they hear? Sometimes it's nothing. The leader just decided to start walking, everybody shut up because they're socializing, and they go to following. Then again, they may be a predator came in and they decided to move off. So that's one of the things you got to be attuned to. Suddenly everything goes dead quiet. Start listening and see why they're doing it. Is it you? They suddenly figure out you're there. So Sir Gregory, actually, I don't work on other people's guns anymore. Years ago, I did gunsmithing. And I've had a lot of people want to send me their percussion revolvers and stuff like that. I'm sorry, I just too big a liability these days for me to get into that again. So I'm sorry. I'll be glad to give any advice I can, but I'm sorry, I don't work on other people's guns anymore. Caesar, he is got his camera, and we were doing test footage with it, and I'm expecting by the middle of next month, Bear's channel will be up, and he'll have some videos going. In fact, that's what we're going to be doing this Sunday. We're getting together, going to shoot a test video or two. I'll edit it for him, and then we're going to get it. So we've got the camera, we've got the tripod. He's now working out the other details, so I'm figuring we're within a month we'll have Bear's channel up. Yeah, Cool Breeze. My granddaddy told me when I was a boy, he said that 99 out of 100 black bears will run from you, but they do not come in that order. So most time you just make a noise and they take off. So YOLO. Oh, glad you built your first one. Glad that my percussion revolver series was helpful. I get a lot of people that really mind those and look at it. And I am still going to be doing more videos with that. In fact, I've got one I need to get off my butt and do. The problem is, guys, I've got this many, I've got I think last time I looked at my video list was 94 videos that I needed to put out, that I want to put out. And so I have to keep doing this, and I get in this and like I need to do cooking videos again. I need to do more black powder videos. People have been asking me to do black powder rifles or hunting rifles in general, shotguns. I'm doing a video series right now for the survival shotgun that I'm going to publish the whole thing over on Rumble. I have a Rumble account now, Blackie Thomas on Rumble. There's only one video there. But I'm going to put that there, and then there's going to be an edited version of it that's YouTube friendly that I can put on YouTube. So I'm working on that. Plus, I've got Bear wants me to go hunting with him, and let's do a hunting video. And just, I really wish that I had more time in the day to do it. And if I published a video a day, I could magically go poof and have the resources to do every video that I want to do I did a video a day, the last time I looked up, it'd be 8 months before I caught up. So I'm doing the best I can. Hang with me. Will Rowell, I have had a 22 Magnum rifle, liked it a lot. Ammunition was, of course, more expensive than 22 long rifle, but it was double the horsepower. And so for shooting nuisance things that needed a harder hit than a 22, it was a very good choice. And a rifle in one, which the one I had was a semi-automatic many years ago. I really liked it. It was very effective. Tennessee Smoky. Glass marbles or steel for slingshot ammo. Okay. If we're just plinking and having fun, I go to the aquarium set at the big box store and get the bag of those little glass dollops that they've, dropped, and use them because they're going to wobble around. You're not trying to be super accurate. Glass, I prefer for most of the stuff. Steel, the only time I'd use steel is I'm trying to really hit something hard, that I don't want it to, I want it to penetrate rather than break. And usually the hit is sufficient on anything small if I'm shooting with a slingshot. But I have tried to bust an armadillo with a glass wrist rocket one time, and it just broke, but it didn't kill him. And so I had to go to a steel ball to penetrate, quarter-inch shot, penetrated. Loving outdoors. Do you wear a haversack outside? I do actually sometimes when I'm going shopping for things, it's going to be a lot of little stuff. I'll just throw my haversack on. Keeps my hands free. And if I'm going out with Mrs. Blackie and it's one of those, we're going holiday shopping, you can bet I'm toting a small rucksack because we're going to go through the malls and we're going to go over here, and you're doing like this. And I just start piling stuff that we pay for it in the rucksack. And so, yeah, I do sometimes carry my haversack. And I've got another bag that is a elk skin bag I carried in living history that's kind of like a haversack that I carry sometimes at events and things. I'll wear that walking around because I'll have where I can take business cards and stuff and keep it and have notes I want to take down and things like that. I'll carry that as just something quick and handy. Hello, Justin. Hope you're enjoying your class. It's not too bad for you. Thank you very much, Merritt. William, how often do me and Mrs. Blackie go camping? Definitely about twice a year. Now, we have, in the past, we did it a whole lot more than that, but she just doesn't enjoy it as much as she once did. Now, I got her in the hammocks this year, and she camped out in her own hammock in the spring, and she enjoyed it a lot better. So we're kind of playing along in that, but she doesn't like being cold. And so she did go with us to Ohio last year, and she did do my gathering last year. So usually 2 to 3 times we'll camp together. Edgar, I don't know. Integral suppressors are a two-edged sword. The baffling guarantees it's quieter. It also means that the bullet is going to be going through a vortex, so to speak, and it often hurts accuracy. Even in the military where they've got big dollars to invest, most of their suppressors don't last very long because the fact that the accuracy goes away very quickly. And so I prefer, for something like what you're talking about, a screw-on legally purchased such device would be better, because if it wore out or whatever over time, I could change it out. If it's internal, now I got to change the entire upper, That's the two sides of the coin. What's the job? If the internals were that great, the militaries of the world would have gone to them long ago. They've stayed with the screw-on cans for a lot of it for that very reason. Marcus, have I ever found any Bigfoot tracks? I have not found Bigfoot tracks. I have found some odd sign before that I couldn't automatically answer. But no, I have not seen be able to point to and say, that was a Bigfoot. Have I heard things, seen things I could not easily explain? Yes, but I have not. Philip, yeah, 4570 carbine is a lot rougher than a 4570 rifle. When you start shortening that barrel down, you get a lot of blast out of that. William, does she like camping? She does enjoy camping. And a lot of times when on the weekends when I'm going to go to the lake and just do a bunch of videos at one time, she'll go with me and she'll go sit down by the lake. She takes her chair, she sits her little stool, a little table up, and she writes letters and stuff and just enjoys the outdoors. She really does enjoy it. We're just at the age now where it's not as fun to stay as it used to be. Let's see. Hello, Nicholas. Welcome to the party. Gray Wolf, the 300 would be a decent choice. The 300 was originally developed for law enforcement, and the ballistics originally were about like a 30-30. Why didn't they just go with the 7.6239? Because they wanted to start from a clean slate. And so the 300 could be loaded down to the 7.6239 or loaded up more toward the edge of 308, depending really on the 300 Savage thing. So 30-30, something like that. It'd be a good hunting round. And I would really like to see that round become more of a hunting round, like the 350 Legend. You see a lot of things done with 350 Legend today. I really think that probably 10 years from now, that if there's going to be a future for the 300 Blackout, it's going to be in hunting. Because I think sub calibers are going to replace it in the jobs it was originally started for. They'll go with smaller bullets. And I really think that the 300, if it's going to have a real future, it's going to be a hunting gun. Justin, learning about tourniquets now. Oh, that's a lot of fun. Diane, have I ever made my own shotgun shells using black powder? Yes, they're one of the easiest things to load. Really. I would take a 1/4-inch socket set extension and use that to punch out the old primer or punch. And then I would have a hardened piece, sometimes I'd lay a hammer up there and use the side of a hammer. Thumb press in the primer as far as you could go, put it on top, and then take the socket open end, go down over it of the extension and tap, 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 and that would seat the primer. Then you poured in your measured black powder, took, wadded up, newspaper, wasp or hornet nest, something like that, pack that down. Then you put your shot into it, and then you compress that down. And then over the top, I put a cardboard wad or something into it and added a strip all the way around it of like Elmer's glue or something like that, just to hold it in place. Fires just fine. So it's not as difficult to load black powder shotgun shells as it is other things. Oh, hello, Rima in France. Okay, a kukri sheath. My friend made one that, imagine that this is the sheath. Instead of the kukri coming in from the top, it come in like this and then stood up. Okay, so there's from here up, there's an opening. So you'd come in like that, and there's a strap up here that held the kukri in place. So it's like that, and it's coming between the two pieces. And you just unsnap and went forward with it. If you're making a cookery sheath, that's very effective. The pulling in and out cookery sheaths, you run the risk, unless you've got thick wood, brass, something, that edge, because that curve of the blade riding in and out, it's going to slice the front of the sheath. And you never wrap your hand around the neck of a cookery sheath to pull it out, because if it does slice through, it's going to get your fingers. You always hold it like this rather than like that to bring it out. So if you're building a sheath from scratch, I'd recommend that make up a wooden model, a plastic model, or whatever of the in and out, whatever's going to be the rigid part of it. Use duct tape to hold it together in the right position, and make sure when you slide it in and out that it's not just going to slice your sheath. I had a good friend of mine that put a lot of love into making a cookery sheath. And then about the third time he drawed it, he just sliced the leather because of wasn't as careful pulling it out. And when he went to pull it, it just like 2 inches sliced right out of it and ruined the sheath. So it's one of those things, it's a complex angle going in and out. So Eric Smith, congratulations on taking you're going to be taking the one win to the basics at the Pathfinder School. They're good hammocks. I think you're doing good with that. Todd Carr, good evening. Terry, I hate the cold too. I understand. Well, it's not so much the cold. It's if it's warm, skeeters eat her alive. She's just sweet as she can be. And every skeeter for 5 states just go, she's here, and here they come running. I can be arm's length from her, sitting there wearing a pair of swim trunks and nothing else. And I get 3 bites. She has a cloud and a holding pattern waiting for her to come out from under that blanket or whatever. And so if it's warm, she's eaten up by skeeters. If it's cold, her bones hurt like mine do. And so it's kind of difficult. So we got a narrow window that she can enjoy it. And so she does go. And she does enjoy taking her time out in the woods. It's just those 2 things can bother. You can find things they can enjoy. Getting your wife to go out or family members to go out that don't enjoy the actual camping or whatever. I've helped people get, it's kind of like the Woodscraft Anonymous. Hello, my name is, I've so many times since I've been out in the woods, getting their family to go, because a lot of times the wife just don't want to go. Her idea of camping is room service. And so that's where you want to stress the beauty and little short nature hikes and walks at real pretty locations where she can enjoy it and be comfortable, and just pre-make up food and stuff where you can either immersion heat to warm it up or cold cuts or whatever. Make it like a date. Make it where she enjoys going out there, and that will be more inclined to get her to come out. Now, when my wife and I first got together, I was, of course, big into camping. I was about every weekend. If I'm off from work, I'm heading to the woods. And she went out several times with me, and she enjoyed it. And we started doing living history. And I told her that, honey, you've got to prove to me that you're really going to do this before I invest all this money in a big tent and everything else. I'm living out of a rucksack, sleeping on the ground, making up my own bed and everything else. And I said, if you prove to me that you're serious for a year, I will make you comfortable. And for a year, she lived out of a rucksack just like me. I had her a sleeping pad. She slept next to me under a diamond or whatever, and she toughed it out. She was a trooper. Well, after that, I got a great big old wall tent, and I got a big comfy bed and everything else. And it takes me about an hour to fully set up if we're going to be here for a week, and me set up the big tent for her and everything, but she'll be comfortable. And she'll have a bed to sleep on. She'll have chairs. She'll have little tables. She can sit right and do her crafts and etc. And then I'll run off in the woods and, chase, Sasquatch and stuff. And she can be back at camp, enjoy her coffee. You know, I told everybody the story that for her to learn how to build a fire, she don't want to learn all that stuff. She just wants a fire. So I got her a propane stove. Turn the thing, hit the button, poof, flames. Heat up your coffee, honey. And for building a fire, because you want a fire to sit next to if I wasn't there or whatever, I went and got Kingsford charcoal, that matchlight stuff, and got the old paper lunch bags. And I'd put 10 of those briquettes in a bag, roll the top down, and staple it closed. And I got a ammo can and would set these made up inside of it, close it. Now, whenever you want a fire, all you got to do is pull out one bag, sit it on the ground, stick a lighter to it, set the bag on fire, and start piling sticks on top of it. And she could build a fire. And so she could have a fire to warm her feet or whatever, because I'm still down in the woods doing something. And so if she wanted one, she could build one. If she wanted to heat up something, she had her little stove. And just, you make her comfortable. You know, she knows where I'm at. I'll come running if she needs me. Okay, let's see. Andrew, what kind of work would I need to do for an Army or Navy for quick draw shooting? Well, first, that's not the first choice I would pick for such a device, but reliability. The cones on it, I would swap over to either the slick shot nipples or to the Tresco nipples. I personally like Trescos, but either way. Make sure that the depth is correct, and what you do is put a piece of masking tape on the back of the cone and let the hammer pull the trigger and thumb push the hammer forward. You should see a circular impression where it's pushing it against the cone. If not, it's a little too deep. Back it out an eighth of a turn until you see that impression. That will greatly enhance ignition. And some sort of holster that you can clear quickly and easy. But remembering that percussion revolvers, if they did hang fire, and they're capable of that, could be a bad thing. So again, not something I recommend. Have I done it? Yeah, I practiced. I was young. I used to fast draw 100 times every night, just trying to, you know, be Matt Dillon, that type deal. But I wasn't shooting. I was just training muscle memory. And so I would also replace the trigger spring with the wire trigger spring. Go to Wolf Springs and get the one that's made for the Pieta single action Army. It'll be a grunt too long, and it'll look like a paper clip that's been turned into the shape, and the legs are going to be just a little bit too long, and you can file or make that to where it fits properly, and that will greatly improve reliability. Hope that helps. Uh-oh, she who must be obeyed. Nope, we're okay. Now let's see here. What we got over here. Oh, Edgar. There's lots of videos on that stuff. You know, anything that will quiet something down. There's lots of videos out there on that stuff. That ain't something I played with a lot. Angela, thank you very much. Hello, Todd in New Brunswick, Canada. Bush Pony, hello, and welcome to the channel. Do I do air gun hunting? I did in my youth. I don't at this time. But I actually have thought about getting me a air gun. An adult, you know, single pump, single piston, probably a 22 caliber, because I knew of a guy that had a custom mold made up. He just contacted, I think it was Lee Precision, and had them make him up a mold to cast like 6 air gun 22 caliber pellets, and he just casted his own bullets. That he get his own ammo, and since it's just seals and stuff, and whenever he bought his, he went ahead and got an extra 2 sets of seals. So down the line, should it not be available to get it, he'd have basically a lifetime of replacement parts for that. And with a 22 caliber, that the pellets leaving the barrel at 1,000 feet per second, the 22 short leaves the barrel of a 22 rifle at about 700 to 800. So it's more powerful than a 22 short, and I can hunt rabbits and squirrels and other small game up close quietly with 22 short. So a 22 air rifle of the same job would be doing the same job, same weight, just different propulsion. So in a long-term scenario, might be a good idea. Hey, Ben, yeah. No, I do not have any more prototypes right now. Ben and Vaughn McKenzie, in my Blackbird haversacks, I had accidentally shipped them the prototype, one of the prototypes, the very first prototype that I had gotten of Blackbird 2. And it just a proof of concept. It wasn't a finished product. It had been made and it was bagged. There was like gaps here or there. And it was just a proof of concept. And I accidentally shipped it. And so he got it and he said, it's missing this and it's missing that. And I realized I had shipped him the prototype. So I shipped him another one to replace. So he got a collectible. He got the prototype. Red Dormer crossbows. Crossbows are very good, especially because you can bring them to cock position and be like a rifle. Especially when you're a tight, compact shooting house or something, you can't easily maneuver a longbow. Very good way to go. And you get a lot more horsepower out of them than you can a bow. You're slower to reload, but you get a lot more horsepower out of them. Yeah, Andrew, they do make good yard guns, and for woods walking. And a good friend of mine, that's how he trained his granddaughter to hunt. Was he started out with he got her one of the little bitty Daisy Red Riders, and he had an adult size air gun. And they'd go on Sunday afternoons. They'd go walking around the edge of the field, and he'd say, "Hit that pine cone, hit that weed right there, hit that dirt clod right there, whatever." And over the course of like her growing up 2-3 years, she became a pretty good shot. And then he got her own air. And so they're in an area that's not really outside city limits. It's right on the edge of the city limit. And so he couldn't really go out there with 22s or whatever to teach. And so he started out with air guns. And I think it's a very good idea, because the hand-eye coordination, the fact you have to be still, calm to be accurate, is something that is a good way to teach kids of how to be calm. But I come from high school RTC rifle team, so Midwestern, the stealth videos, thank you very much. I will be doing a stealth video for this Sunday. And what it is I've made up one of those jungle knots. I'm going to show you how to make a quick blind, quick shelter out of it. And it's something that can be applied to witchcraft, not just shelter. But it's something you can pull out of your pocket, quickly hook up, and start hooking brush into right quick. And just quickly assemble a blind that you can improve into a shelter if you need, or just a blind right quick. Someplace I can rest and be out of sight. And not have to be very elaborate. And all it is a piece of string rigged up a certain way. And if I have to walk off and leave it, it's a piece of string. It's nothing big. Dirt, weight and size ferro rod. I typically like the 5 or 6 inch, about that long, that long. And I put a pretty good handle on it. Is about my favorite size. I know they make them much bigger and much longer. Diameter somewhere around a 1/2 inch or close to it is normally. The thinner ones, you can, if you bear down, you can snap them. And I prefer one that's a thick enough, got enough backbone where I can kind of saw down on it and really get a big shower of molten metal when things are wet and I need it to hit and sit there and dance and burn for a couple of seconds to get the tinder to catch. These ferro rods are not supposed to be passed down to our grandkids. So use that puppy. I mean, bear down on it and put a shaving off of it. And I broke several of the small ones where it was really wet and I was trying to make it happen. So I went to about that size, and that's what I prefer. The slingshot bow and arrow. I have made up one, actually, excuse me. Back when Dave Canterbury was doing the sling bow video like 10 years ago or something, that was not, it was early on in his channel. And I was really intrigued by that idea. And I had used them wrist rockets since I was a kid. And so I got a couple of the black bands, cut them 1 inch short, and I didn't buy the fancy thing. I just took a piece of PVC pipe, heated it up, cut it, heated up, bent it up where I could put a whisker biscuit into it with a little JB weld and lock it onto the handle and duct, electrical tape to the handle to have a whisker biscuit to put it into, and then you put your knock between the two to be able to pull back and let go. And it was very effective. I was shooting targets with it quite a bit back then. And then somebody wanted it more than me and willing to, can I buy that one off of you? And I sold it. But yes, they can be very effective. For a survival situation, be very useful. I can't, Rima, what's your opinion of 300 Blackout bolt action versus Subsonic 308? I believe they would be comparable. I do not have enough hands-on experience with the 300 to give you an in-depth. I have quite a bit of experience with the 308 and Subsonic 308. Of the two, I believe that the 300 would be a better choice if you're trying to go quiet, because of the smaller case capacity. It'd be easier to dial it in. When you're taking a larger cartridge and you're trying to reduce the powder capacity to get it subsonic, you got all that airspace now. And that quite often gives you ignition problems, and it makes variation shot to shot. And then you add in what it's got to do to go through a can or something because you're shooting subsonic. That's variations. And so I think the 300 would be a better choice to do the experimentation with, because that's really what it was designed for, as opposed to the 308, trying to dial the 308 down to it. Gray Wolf, thought about making 22 swedged air gun pellets. I thought about doing a mold, but I have not thought about making a swage for it. CJ, are my multi-bags still available? Technically, yeah. Dan Lutz was doing that, and when he passed away, that kind of stopped it. But I'm thinking about after the first year, I'll bring them back and put them on my site, and I will handle it. In fact, a lot of people don't get that actually a lot of those multi-bags, my wife and I were making them for Dan. I was the one putting all the snaps on them. So if you're mad about the snaps, Blackie's to blame. But my wife was sewing them, and we were doing it for Dan, so Dan would have something. So yeah, we will be doing multi-bags again. But let's just say after the first year, I'll start doing that again. Peter, what's the best way to dry your clothes and boots when you've got soap like you fell in? If you have nothing else, what I recommend you do is this. One, take off the clothing as soon as you get out of the water. Wring it out as best you can. Wearing it really doesn't give you a great advantage at that point, especially if it's cotton. Now, if it's wool clothing, that's a different thing. But if you're talking about blue jeans and a shirt, cotton shirt, it's actually hurting you. You're actually warmer, naked than you would be with that. So get the fire going, take sticks, run through the pants, stand. So here's the waist down here. The legs are like this. Stand it like that toward it. take the shirt, drape it around the side this way, so it's like these two like this, to create a pocket of warm air, and then bank the fire up like you do for a reflective oven to throw the heat into there. If it's cotton, as long as you see a little steam, not steam, but a little bit of steam, great. You're projecting enough, and you want bright fire. You want a lot of flames. Okay. Flip it every few minutes. Now, after you get it where there's no more steam coming off the legs, invert and go to the waist and all up there and dry that in, and then turn them inside out. It's going to be about a 4-step process of dry the outside, dry the top, now dry the bottom, now turn it inside out, now dry the top, now dry the bottom, now check it and see how it feels. Pull it away from the heat, let it cool off, because while it's warm, it'll feel dry, and then when you get it away, you're going to find out it's actually still a little bit damp. I've had to dry clothing like that. It sucks, but a lot of times if I've got a dirt bank right here where I can get up so it's a heat reflector, so to speak, I'll build up the big fire and then put the clothing up there to try to catch as much heat as I can. But it sucks. Now, you're going to be having to sit by the fire to keep you warm anyway. In those situations, here's a little trick for you. Get everything going and then turn around and put your back to the fire. If you heat your kidneys, you heat the body. But when you're facing a fire, which is the way we instinctively want to do, is actually the worst way to stay warm by fire, because your kidneys are to the cold side. And that's where the blood pools up in the kidneys. See, if you'll turn around and put your back to the fire and warm up your back, your internals will warm up faster. You'll stop shivering faster. And once your internals stop, your arms and legs will quit. Trust me, by real world experience, falling in the river in the dead of winter and being in the middle of nowhere, and you just got to build a fire to stay alive. That's the way I've had to do it, and that's what I found the best way to do. Nicholas, I've shot several cut shells in the past. Always bothered me the fact that the whole part of the plastic shell with a shot could potentially split the barrel using a modified choke. I have heard that. I have never seen that. Okay. No, if it's a very thin walled barrel, and trust me, sometime when you're at a gun show or something, look at the end of the barrels. There is a difference in the thickness. I've never seen a single shot bust like that because they're normally a lot thicker barrel. I've seen an automatic bulge a barrel because of a plug or something, because they're thin barrels, because they're trying to keep the weight down of the whole gun. See? But I have heard that, but I have never personally seen that. I have seen barrels burst, but it was because of a plug of mud or something. So, but whenever you fire and the front half of that cut shell goes out, it will compress just like before. And then it flies to target just like a slug. But on impact, then it busts open. It's like you stuck the muzzle up against the hog and pulled the trigger. It's extremely devastating. Same thing with the wax slug. I would rather use wax slugs than cut shells, because that will fly the same way. And again, same advantage. It'll take the shot all the way out there, and then when it hits, boom, it opens up, and it's like a safety slug, we used to call them years ago, that you could get 38s, 357s, I think 44 Magnums, and it was a blue bullet that was full of shot and oil, and it would fly to target, and on impact, then it'd bust open. Same idea. Very devastating. Chris, I have been told by the manufacturer that I will have my haversacks by the end of this month. So we're on the 20th. It's got to be in the next 10 days. They'll show up to me. As soon as they show up, I've already got y'all right above me right here. I've got all of y'all's name already put onto an envelope ready to go. And so all I got to do is just fold them, stuff them, peel the tab, seal it up, and take it to the post office. And so I expect by the 1st of November that they'll be en route to everybody, and you'll have your Blackbird haversack coming. And I will make the announcement on the channel that I have shipped. Okay. Sure Sharp, do you make deer jerky? Yeah. I like to take a little bit of teriyaki sauce and soak it in it. I've also added some smoked paprika to that before. And of course, I've got friends and family, they like put hot sauce. They like it spicy. Some people like it more peppered. Some people even like it more of a mustard taste. It's just whatever. It's just meat. And so any kind of marinade works good. And here's a little trick for you can try. I would save steak marinades where I took this, 1 gallon Ziploc bag and I put the steaks in it and I put all the stuff in, I marinated it, right? When I got done, instead of throwing that away, I would put it into the smallest, like a quart Ziploc bag. Thank you, Jay. And I would freeze it. And we were going to make jerky. I would pull that out. And that juice is not only got the marinade, it's also got that beef flavor in it where it marinated overnight. See, and I would marinate the cut up strips of deer meat in it for at least a couple of hours, sometimes overnight, before I dried it and ran it through the drying process. And it would make a really good taste. I have before got lucky and got deer jerky that tasted like beef jerky. You couldn't tell the difference. So that's just the way I'd recycle one thing into another. Steve, run into many leeches. Not a lot. Now, we'd have these little bitty ones. If you got deep leaf beds and bottoms of creeks or something, or swamp areas, and you're walking through them, you will get these teeny tiny little leeches, about like ½ inch. I've had them get between my toes and stuff, but they, mostly you just touch them, they fall off. We don't have like them big bow hunkers like you have like in other places in the world. Most people wouldn't even notice it. We'd think it's a worm. You get down there and really look at it and see what it is. Do I have any experience with Subsonic 3030? I have loaded 3030 down to where it was extremely quiet. And since it was going to be using extremely close range, I found that I could put like the bullet that went into a 30 carbine in it, just a small 30 caliber bullet, hollow point 30 carbine bullet that you could get from Spear back in the day. And the bullet was leaving the barrel at somewhere around 900 feet per second, and was very effective at close range and didn't make a lot of fuss. I was hunting in a place that I didn't want to disturb. Where we were was a rock solid, righteous place to hunt, but just over the hill right there was a housing division, and I'm shooting away from it, but the landowner didn't want them complaining about bullets, so I had to tone everything down where it was kind of quiet. And I took several deer off that land that year, so they never really realized what I was doing. So, Edgar, heat up stones with it to stay warm around a fire. Yes, not stones from around water, because they may have water content and stones can explode like a grenade. So that's, and down here in my part of the South, most things we find are around rivers. I'm not in a rocky area. It's mostly soil and sandstone, which has water in it. And so, yeah, you can do that. And especially the place got granite and stuff like that. But put the rock off the side and let it heat up real slow. Because if you put it in that fire and get it good and hot and there's a water content, that thing will blow like a grenade. Yeah, red dormer. Yeah, getting both of them, the haversack and the nighthawk. Awesome. Chris, how about a series on squirrel guns? I'm assuming for squirrel hunting. Possibly a good idea. Yeah. When I get one, if I get one, I would be happy to do that. That's right, Gray Wolf. Glacier safety slugs. That's right. Back in the day. Don Kimball, thank you for stopping by. Okay, how to dry the boots. You're going to think I'm crazy, but this works. go buy and buy one of them super cheap hair dryers. You know, they're available for like $10. It's not a great hair dryer. It's actually kind of weak. That's the point. Stick it in the boot and just turn it on and let it run. Usually it will slowly, because it's not generating that much hot air. You know, a lot of times you got a heat sensor. Instead of going all the way hot, go about halfway up. So it's just good, warm, dry air. And it's really drying the boot less by heat and more kind of like you air drying, like you dry jerky. You know what I mean? I had a pair of leather snake boots that when we'd go down in the swamp, you needed them boots. And you might be up to your knees in water. And forget waders, you needed snake boots. And to dry them leather boots out, that's what I did. I just get a super cheap hair dryer and sit there and do it. Now around the fire or something like that, you're right back to where that you get too close, you cook it. You got to be slow and easy. Awesome, Chris. I hope you really enjoy having them and have a lot of years of adventures with it. Andrew, no. It been my experience when you back the nipple out on a percussion cylinder, and we're talking about just like to just to get the depth right. It will normally just carbon up in front of it, and it won't get loose. Normally, after you fire it once or twice, carbon builds up, and it'll just hold it in place. Of course, always put anti-seize on the threads before you put it in. And I've had a couple that they were actually created where the seat's a little too deep, and you'd screw them all the way down flush where it's nice and snug, and then the hammer wouldn't quite have enough, and it would 1 out of 3 tries it'd set it off because it's trying to kind of bounce down there and hit it. But if you back the nip, you know, that straight up on the wrench, you went that much, suddenly it would be a reliable ignition. So you may want to consider that, but I've never had them come loose. Like I said, after I fire 3 or 4 times, they're stuck there. They're going to stay there. Hello, fake news. Yep, it's almost time for persimmons. I believe, Grey Wolf, I think you're talking about James Bender and Waypoint Survival. He is not, but I've been trying to talk him into getting to doing lives. Maybe I'll be able to get him on here one night and us do a live together. We'll see. Good night, William. Have a good night. Sleep well. Oh, Edward, thinking about without electricity. I got you. Yeah, just you're gonna have to put something in to dry the boots that's gonna be a really dry material. I have heard people say, although I have never done it, pouring sand, just fill the boot full of sand and let it suck the moisture out. But that to me is detrimental. I have never done it, and to me that would just be a way to wear out a boot in a hurry because you never get all that sand back out. But just some sort of dry material to go up in there. Time and air is about all you got. If you don't have electricity or something to do it. Now, to warm a boot to help dry it out, you could take one of those stainless steel water bottles, pour boiling water in it, put the cap on it, have it inside of a sock, and set it down in the boot, and let that heat the boot up to help dry it out. See what I'm saying? You could do that on a campfire. As a way to transfer, you need heat to get it to dry. So, hello, Steve. Glad to do it. The hat I'm wearing came from the Boy Scouts of America. It is a Boy Scouts Explorers Scoutmaster hat. And one time I was told they're still selling them. Other times I've told that, and what it basically is a Confederate slouch hat. Is what it is. Light felt is what it says in the center of it, but that's about the only marking I got on it. And if I can, I had at one point found a guy, the manufacturer that claimed that they made these, and this is crushable felt's what it is. You can water it up in water and let go, and it springs right back. It's one of the reasons I liked it, because it was great putting in a pack. If I can ever find a source of them, I will pass it on to everybody and let them get it, because I know that a lot of people want one of these hats. Jay Skinner talked about doing an old ways book. Not at this time, and I'm still going to whack Bear for this idea about Blackie and Bear's cookbook that he threw out day at breakfast. He said, "Oh, that'd be a good Blackie and Bear recipe." I'm going to hurt him. I got enough irons in my fire right now, and he's wanting to do a book. So we're going to just say I'll let Bear do an old ways cookbook and an old ways book. How about that? Nicholas, thank you very much. Glad to help. Yeah, Gray Wolf, exploding rocks are a fact. I've seen that personally. We were going to do a medicine lodge and a sweat, and someone had brought the rocks, and I asked. Now these are nowhere near any kind of water. Oh no, got me. They got a big old pallet fire going and was heating up those rocks, and luckily we were all about 60-70 yards away when it went, and it sounded like a 12 gauge went off. Boom, and there was a full-size wood pallet laying on top of it on fire. It blew it like 30 feet in the air. Shrapnel from rock went probably 100 yards in every direction. Luckily nobody got hit, but you would have thought a 12 gauge went off by the sound of it. Bam, and it was a rock about that big cooked off in the middle of that. And when I finally pressured him, like, "Where'd you get these rocks?" "Well, they're down by the river up under the bridge there." Ugh. You know, rick rack. Yeah, well, the problem with it is we had a flood that year, and those had been underwater for over a week, so they probably had water content. So yeah. Errol, good night. Are there any free databases for older pocket knives? Not that I'm aware of. If you're talking about researching them for collecting, I would look at the name brand, collecting, and see what comes up. I mean, I'm sure, like if you're collecting old timer or Queen Steel or clean cut or any of them, there are collectors groups out there, and they will probably be a real wealth of resources to original information to find out where knives came from, where the designs came from, what time period they were used in, etc. So if you're doing it for like a modern living history type thing of like the Bannerman's groups, that's a way to find those. You're coming in sideways, because if I just want to look up this pocket knife, there might not be a lot in it. But if you go look at the collectors of that brand, they have done all the hard legwork for you, and you probably find a lot more. Go back. How do you keep the floor of your tent dry when it pours on you while camping? Location. If you think you're going to be facing any kind of rain weather coming in, here's where I want to camp. The first thing you do is squat down on your heels and look at the lay of the ground. You're looking from a 5 or 6 foot elevation difference. Drop down as low as you can and look at it. You want the ground crowned a little high. You do not want any depression. If a depression, water can pool up there. So you want it crowned so water's running away. So when I put my shelter, when I put whatever here, all the water's going to run away from me. Okay. Look uphill. Is there a runway of water comes down into this valley? Avoid those. find the location. When you do that, you can sit up and you never have to worry about your feet getting wet. I have had week-long deluges in my big wall tent and never had my floor damp because it was up on a little bit of a crest and the water was always shedding away from me. On the other hand, me and a very good friend set up a diamond one time at Fort Toulouse and thought it was a great location, and it flooded to a depth of 6 inches over 2 days, and everything we had got wet. You know, you just got to look at location. That's the big thing. I have, Rima, I have heard years ago of a company that was talking about reusable percussion caps, and what they were like a silicone cup that you would put the pellet that come out of a cap gun pellet into it for a priming compound, or I believe they actually sold a dropper that you put a drop in each cap and they could be reloaded, and it was multiple shots. I remember that somewhere in the 90s, but I never got to actually lay hands on one or use it. But if there's someone in France that it's kind of refound that technology, I think they make a killing because caps are so in demand right now. And you can understand that right now with ammunition in such a demand, this machine that makes percussion caps could also make small pistol primers for 9mm, 380, which is in more profitable and more demand. The 9mm, the real cartridge. So I would, from a manufacturer's point of view, rather make that than I would percussion caps. And so because that, percussion caps have just about dried up where you're having to hunt to find some. And when you do, they're normally very expensive relatively. I mean, I remember guys buying 1,000 count boxes of percussion caps for $18. And here recently, when I was looking to buy 1,000 count percussion caps, it was $137 for the same cap that I bought back then for $18. So yeah, they're in demand. So a reloadable cap that you could utilize, I think would make a killing right now in the U.S. market if they could ever get it to go over here. Washburn Billy, hello. Groundhog, you're welcome. Yeah. Here's something that you can consider. I use a canteen as a hot water bottle. Now, if you have a Nalgene type canteen, you can put boiling water in it. If you have any of the plastic ones like the U.S. Army, you cannot put boiling water. You can put very warm water in it, you know, like hot coffee water, and not melt it. And so I would simply, you know, fill it up, seal it up tight, wrap it up in an old t-shirt, and that's what I'd curl around to help stay warm at night as a hot water bottle. Because when you first get into your blankets, into your bedding, that's the big thing. You've got to heat up the bedding, and it sucks a lot of BTUs out of you to do it. That hot water bottle reduces your input, and it's giving the input. Plus, once it's cooled down, and as low as it's going to get, it's close to body temp because it's against you, right? It's just more thermal mass to feed back to you. See, so I've done that several times with a canteen as a hot water bottle. Crypto, yes. Contact me on Facebook. I'm Blackie Thomas on Facebook, or contact me at this email, which is down and dirty woods with an S on it, woodscraft@gmail.com, and I'll work with you on a payment thing. Common sense Karen, glad to be of help. Hope glad you find out stuff. Woo, gray wolf, yeah. High tide and storm surge will do it. I had good friends go to Panama City and set up on a private section of beach, and they never thought about high tide. And so they went, up over the berm doing stuff and all this stuff. And they come walking back down there a couple hours later, and suddenly all their stuff is gone. The tide had come in, and it'll get you. Andrew, yes, I have gone hog and deer hunting on state land, and we have a lot of such land here in Alabama. You have Connecticut National Forest down here near me, and you have Geneva State Forest, which is I believe it's 70,000 acres is Connecticut National, and 7,000 is Geneva State. And with most modern hunters, if you go more than 200 yards in the woods, you're in virgin territory, because most modern hunters don't go in the woods. They get off their truck, they climb on their four-wheeler, they put about 100 yards, and they get in their deer stand. And so I tell people, if you want to find virgin territory, walk down that creek a quarter mile, and you're in virgin territory, because none of these people are going to go down there and look. And you can find hog, you can find deer, and a lot of times, like the forest rangers and stuff, you'll talk to them, they'll give you good ideas where to find hogs, because hogs are very detrimental to them putting out food plots and stuff like that, because they want them gone. You can hunt hog out in Alabama year round, and you'll come in and plant a food plot, and hogs will come through and root up every seed you planted. They just like a bulldozer going along. And so they want to get rid of hog. And so you can, and another chance, if you're looking to hunt hog or something, go where farmers hang out. The co-op, the farmer's supply, the seed hut, the wherever, the corn crib where everybody puts their grain and stuff, and put up a little, see if you can, they've got a notice board, and put up a little 3x5 card that says, do you have a hog problem? Call me, I'll come get it, and put your phone number down. And farmers will call you to go get it. They ain't got time to hunt it, and they got hogs that's tearing up their stuff. And so instead of you having to beg people to hunt, they'll come to you asking you want to come kill hogs? I've turned a lot of GIs onto that, and they've got a lot of hogs that way. Correct, Edgar. Chihuahuas and a lot of the small breeds, the little bitty, what is that dog? It's white, has all the fur. Looks like a mop going by. Can't remember the name of it right now, but most of those small dogs were bred for warmth in Europe during the medieval ice age to be small companion dogs, because their body heat's over 100 degrees. Hence the old term about 3-dog nights and things like that, where you'd actually put dogs on the bed with you because they were warm, help keep you warm at night, that type deal. So yeah, small dogs can actually be a warmer. Yeah, thermal mass is Gray Wolf. Dan Lutz was a big fan of the thermal mass theory, and he and I had talked in depth about taking a Dakota hole, putting a ammo can over the top of it, and then having a air channel coming out the other side, going outside the tent, and turning a Dakota hole into a thermal mass heater with an upside down ammo can over the top of it to be the combustion chamber. And I detailed it out, and he did a test up there in Ohio and claimed it worked, and that it ran him out of the tent he was in. He said, man, I can't be in this tent with this thing. So I haven't revisited that, because it's got to be dead winter for me to even try that. But I may try it this year. I may just get me out there and dig me a Dakota hole and rig up the idea I'm talking about of a thermal mass heater. The only thing you'd have to tote would be the ammo can and a roll up piece of tin, because you would dig the Dakota hole. You'd have your vertical shaft and your angle shaft coming in that you'd feed fuel in. Then you have your vertical shaft where it would come up, normally where you'd be cooking. Over that, you're going to set the ammo can, but you're going to set the ammo can. Imagine this is the ammo can. Here's the combustion chamber, not in the center, off to the side. Okay. The fire would then come up in here and burn the combustible gases. And then on the bottom on this side, you dig a trench going out of the tent. You then would have inside the can a rolled up sheet of tin that you'd lay out flat. and bury it with the dirt. So that's your chimney going out. Okay. So the fire would come out of the Dakota hole, come up into this combustion chamber, combust, and this would be the stove heating up the tin. And the smoke would be forced to go out and go under the ground and go out the other side. No pipe to carry. And we'll find out how many channels are watching my stuff to get ideas. How many people pop up with that in their channels in the next 2 weeks. Because nobody's done a video on that yet. We shall see. Well, guys, it's been an hour and 54 minutes. So that's about it for this time. I greatly appreciate y'all tuning in. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. And there'll be more videos coming very soon. I will, as soon as I get in the Blackbird 2s, I will announce that they're in, that I am shipping them. I will announce when the Blackbird 2 next run is on. We're on course for the Nighthawk haversack at my last communication, and that should be the end of November, beginning of December. Those should be ready for shipping to those. So any changes, I'll do a video. Thank y'all very much. Good night. Till next time, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.